The Sennheiser HD line of headphones is nothing short of legendary in the audiophile world. Over a number of decades, they have released an ever-increasing number of high-quality headphones, with their most recent line being the HD820 series. The latest addition to this line is the exquisite HD820. If you're at all familiar with Sennheiser's original HD800 and HD800S, then the HD820 will look very familiar to you. Where the 800 had a very premium looking silver color scheme, Sennheiser went with an almost all black theme for the 800S. So in that regard, the new 820 looks more closely related to the 800S. However, what is totally different is that the 820 is in fact a closed back set of headphones, rather than being of an open back design like its predecessors. As you might be able to tell from the all black color, the majority of the headphone, or at least the frame, is made out of plastic. It's definitely not a cheap feeling plastic, as it's got a nice soft touch texture, and there are no weird squeaks when moving some of the movable parts or when stretching the headband. But I'm sure that most of you would agree that it would have been nice to see such a high-end set of headphones feature more premium feeling materials such as metal or maybe wood. And yet, Sennheiser did do a little something here that we really don't see very often, or at least it is a first for myself personally. As mentioned, where the original 800 and the subsequent 800S were of an open back design, the 820 is a closed back design. But it doesn't totally look like a closed design, does it? That's because slap bang in the center of the ear cup is a concave disc of Gorilla Glass. Now, whilst this does give the headphone a bit more of a premium look and feel, I don't know how thick nor how strong this glass is. As is the case with all glass products, the very nature of the material is that it's incredibly stiff and scratch resistant, but as a result, it can be rather brittle. So this is one area where you would want to be careful not to bump. You'd also want to keep your fingers away, as the glass could pretty easily look terribly smudgy from fingerprints. The one thing I kind of like about the design of the headphones is that it's got two pivot points on each side. So whilst these don't allow for a great deal of movement, they can move just enough to ensure that you get a comfortable fit. As we've all got slightly different head shapes, there is a real need to incorporate an adjustment feature other than just a simple headband size adjustment. And if a headphone sounds great but feels uncomfortable, well, then you're not going to end up enjoying the experience of using it. Speaking of comfort, I think Sennheiser did a really fine job here, as the HD820 is easily one of the most comfortable headphones I've ever used. The headband doesn't have a lot of padding, but it feels like the force is distributed over a wide enough area so that it can be comfortable without needing a lot of padding. The ear pads too are not exactly the softest I've ever felt, but again, the combination of the material used and the fact that they have just enough give still do make them feel very comfy. But it's only when I started listening to the HD820 that I realized that this level of comfort might just be the biggest enemy for the sound signature. Specifically, what I'm referring to is the clamping force. You see, the 820 really doesn't have much clamping force, and this is great for comfort, as I don't have that constant pressure reminding me that I'm wearing headphones. But there is a fine balance to be walked here, as too little of a clamping force could mean that the ear pads would not create a sufficient seal between the driver and the person's ear. This would obviously differ from person to person because, as we've already covered, we all have uniquely sized and shaped heads. In my case, I think I've got perhaps a slightly smaller than average head, so the shape and size of a headphone's ear cups can tend to be a bit of a tricky thing for me. As you can see, the HD820 does have pretty large ear cups, so hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. Let's start things off by talking about the treble. I honestly cannot tell you if I've ever heard such a pleasing treble response from another set of headphones. The first thing I noticed about the treble was just how wonderfully detailed it sounded. Like everything was there, all the subtle nuances, and they were all separated enough from each other to make them sound clear, yet still coherent. But it's the next thing that really grabbed my attention, and that was that despite the exquisite detail, somehow the treble still remained smooth. It sounded real, it sounded natural. It didn't sound like it was tuned to artificially accentuate the treble region. This trend carried over to the mid-range too. There was a presence in the vocals, and again, it sounded natural. Unfortunately, it's when we get to the bass region that it all fell flat for me. Actually, no. Flat is totally the wrong word to use, because instead it felt like the bass region had fallen off a cliff. It actually reminded me more of how the bass region rolls off on the open-back HD600 series. Now, remember when I said that the size and shape of a headphone's ear cups can be a tricky thing for me? Well, this is exactly what I'm referring to. Due to the sheer size of these ear cups, coupled with the very little clamping force, what I get with the A20 is a headphone that doesn't seal properly against my head. And all of that results in a leak of the bass frequencies, especially those deep sub-bass notes. I honestly can't tell you just how disappointed I am about this, because if I take my hands and apply just a bit of pressure on each ear cup, those bass regions suddenly come alive and fill in the sound to give this wonderfully full, engaging and refined signature. It really is one of, if not the best signature I've ever experienced. Not any single region of the frequency spectrum felt like it was being dominated by another. There is a sense of balance and, again, just this sense of coherence that I've very seldomly heard in other headphones. And then there is the soundstage. Let's keep in mind that the HD820 is still a closed back set of headphones, and yet I get the illusion of a soundstage far bigger than what I've ever heard on any other closed back set of headphones. It's as though it has just about all the sonic benefits of an open back, but absolutely none of the drawbacks. This is essentially what my idea of an endgame signature is. And that really makes me envy people with bigger heads. So in this instance, the value of the HD820 is quite tricky to work out. Let's start off with the fact that these do come with a retail price tag of $2,400. That's a buttload of cash to be spending on a set of headphones by any sane person's standards. And yet, if you can try these out for yourself, and if you can get a proper seal with them, then the HD820 could easily be the last set of headphones you ever buy. Honestly, I don't like to hype products simply because it's just so incredibly easy to raise people's expectations far higher than what is realistic. But with the HD820, I feel like these are just about the perfect headphones. I don't know if Sennheiser could perhaps make a slightly tweaked version that has maybe thicker pads or a bit more clamping force, but man, if they do, I would be all over them. Now, if you've watched or read some of my past reviews, then you'll know that I can be very critical of headphones that cost this much, and I still do feel that it is perfectly warranted to be more critical of products as you move up the pricing ladder. So the fact that I don't really have much criticism to say about the HD820 really should tell you a lot. When I compare the HD820 to a couple of other headphones I recently reviewed, then that $2,400 price tag almost seems like a bargain when you consider what you're getting. It's around $1,000 cheaper, but sounds like it should cost about $1,000 more than something like the HE1000 SE from Hi-Fi-Man. Again, if you're able to try these for yourself and you can get a proper seal, then, well, first of all, I hate you, like a lot. But most important is that if you can afford them, then I suggest that you don't look at that $2,400 price tag as less money in your bank account, but rather as a genuine investment into many years of audio enjoyment. Well, that's it for this review. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you've got any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. And also, do let me know, what do you think is your idea of an endgame pair of headphones? That's all from me for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.